Listen, everybody wants protection. We want somebody to stand up for us, fight for us, have our back when the storm hits. But let me tell you something, protection ain't free. It's not just about showing up and asking for it. There's a secret, a principle, a way to activate that shield over your life. And I'm going to give it to you today, but you got to lean in, because if you miss this, you miss everything. Most people don't realize how exhausting it is to live with the constant need to control everything. We grow up thinking that if we don't make it happen, it won't happen. If we don't plan every detail, the plan will fall apart. That mentality might make you resourceful, but it also makes you wary. You find yourself carrying burdens you were never meant to carry, standing guard over battles you were never meant to fight, and losing sleep over problems that were never yours to solve in the first place. There's a deep truth that flips this whole mindset on its head. If you've got a protector, you've got to let him protect you. You can't call someone your shield and then run ahead into the fight, trying to handle it yourself. You can't say, "I trust you," and then keep snatching the wheel back every time you don't like the way the ride feels. Real trust means letting go of the role of hero in your own story and allowing someone stronger, wiser, and more equipped to take that position. Now, that's not to say you don't play a role. You still have to show up. You still have to walk the path. But protection works best when you're positioned where the protector has placed you, not where you've decided you'd rather be. The problem is, letting go feels like weakness to a lot of people. It feels like you're doing nothing, and we live in a culture that worships doing something. But in truth, surrender is one of the most courageous acts you can commit. It's admitting, "I know my limits. I know I can't handle every threat on my own, and I trust you enough to step back so you can do what only you can do." Think about it like this. If you hire a bodyguard and then keep running into danger zones without listening to his instructions, you're not only making his job harder, you're putting yourself at greater risk. You might even get in the way of the very protection you hired him for. The same goes for the spiritual, emotional, and practical side of life. You have to decide, am I going to keep being my own first line of defense, or am I going to let the one who is better at defending take the lead? Here's the thing about trying to be the hero all the time. Heroes get tired. Heroes get overwhelmed. Heroes burn out. But shields don't get tired, because their whole design is to absorb what you can't handle. That's their role. Your role is to get behind the shield and trust that it will do its job. Let me give you an example. Imagine a young woman named Maya. She's fiercely independent, always handled her own problems, always made her own way. Then one day she finds herself in a very real crisis. Her small business is being targeted by a legal claim she knows is false, but she can't prove it without the right expertise. Her older brother, a top lawyer, offers to take over her case free of charge. But here's the catch. Maya can't stop micromanaging. She keeps calling him, telling him which documents to file, what to say in meetings, and how to approach the opposing counsel. At first, he humors her, but eventually he has to sit her down and say, "Maya, if you want me to win this for you, you've got to let me fight it my way. If you keep trying to handle it yourself, you're going to lose. Not because I'm not good at my job, but because you won't let me do it." That moment hits her hard. She realizes she's so used to being the hero that she doesn't know how to stand behind someone else's shield. So she makes the hard choices. She steps back, lets him handle the fight, and focuses on running her business. A few months later, her brother wins the case. Not just wins, completely clears her name, shuts down the false claim, and even negotiates a settlement in her favor. Looking back, she realizes that the victory came not from her strength, but from her decision to step aside and trust someone else to be strong for her. That's exactly how it works in life. The moment you stop wrestling for control, you make space for protection to flow in ways you couldn't orchestrate on your own. You allow solutions to rise up from places you didn't even know existed. You stop exhausting yourself with constant battles, and you start walking in peace knowing you're covered. And here's the best part. When you let the protector be the hero, you don't lose dignity. You don't lose value. You actually gain more strength, because you're not draining yourself in fights you're not equipped for. You conserve your energy for the battles that are truly yours and stand taller in the security that someone far greater has your back. So the next time you feel the urge to grab the wheel, to charge into the fire, to fix everything with your own hands, pause for a moment and ask yourself, am I trying to be the hero here, or am I willing to let the shield take its rightful place? Because the truth is, when you stop trying to be the hero and let him be the shield, you don't just get protected, you get freed. Fear is a master of disguise. It shows up looking like wisdom sometimes, convincing you that your caution is just being smart. It dresses up like preparation, telling you that you're just making sure you've got every possible outcome covered. But underneath all that, fear is one thing, a thief. It steals your peace, your joy, your confidence, and in the worst cases, it even steals your opportunities. Because fear is not just a feeling, it's a voice that whispers, what if you fail? What if they hurt you? What if you're not enough? And the longer you listen to that voice, the louder it gets until it's the only thing you hear. Faith is a completely different voice. Faith doesn't promise that the road will always be smooth, but it promises you won't walk it alone. Faith says, even if it gets dark, even if you don't know how it's going to work out, there is something greater holding you, guiding you, protecting you. The reason faith always wins over fear is that fear looks at the problem and magnifies it, but faith looks at the solution and trusts it's already bigger than the problem. The truth is, you can't hold both tightly at the same time. Fear and faith are like oil and water. They don't mix. When fear is in charge, faith gets pushed to the side. When faith is in charge, fear has no place to stay. That's why every decision you make will come down to which voice you give the microphone to. Here's the thing most people don't realize: if fear is exhausting, it has you checking the locks twice, looking over your shoulder, rehearsing worst-case scenarios like a movie in your head. It makes you brace for impact even when there's no sign of danger. And while you're doing all that, you're burning up the energy you could have used to live, create, build, and rest. Faith, on the other hand, doesn't drain you. Faith lets you sleep sound at night because you've handed over the part you can't control to the one who can control it all. It doesn't mean you stop taking action. It means your actions aren't powered by panic. They're powered by peace. Think about it this way. Fear is like driving with both feet, one on the gas and one on the brake. You move in jerks, you waste fuel, and you never hit your full speed. Faith is taking your foot off the brake and trusting that the road will take you where you're meant to go. The bumps will come, but you'll still get there smoother and faster because you're not fighting yourself the whole way. Let me give you an example. There was a man named David who dreamed of starting his own cafe. He'd been a chef for years, but the idea of owning a business terrified him. Every time he thought about it, fear painted pictures in his mind: empty tables, bills piling up, his savings disappearing. He kept saying, I'll do it when the timing is perfect. But that perfect moment never showed up. One day his friend asked him a simple question. What would you do if you weren't afraid? Without hesitation, David said, I'd open that cafe. His friend smiled and said, then do it in faith, not fear. Something clicked in David that day. He realized fear had been running his life like a bad landlord, collecting rent but given nothing in return. So he took a deep breath, found a small location, and opened his cafe. The first few weeks were slow, but instead of panicking, he chose faith. He believed that if he stayed consistent, the customers would come, and they did. A year later, his cafe was not only thriving, it had become a gathering place for the community. Looking back, he realized fear had almost robbed him of the very thing that made him happiest. Faith didn't just change his business. It changed the way he lived. That's the power of choosing faith over fear. Fear makes decisions based on danger. Faith makes decisions based on destiny. Fear focuses on what could go wrong. Faith focuses on what could go right, and then moves in that direction even if the steps are shaky. Now, this doesn't mean you ignore reality. Faith doesn't mean blind recklessness. It's not about closing your eyes and pretending there are no risks. It's about opening your eyes wider and seeing that the one guiding you is greater than the risk. Fear keeps you in survival mode. Faith moves you into living mode. When you live in fear, your life becomes a series of reactions, always responding to threats, always waiting for the next shoe to drop. When you live in faith, your life becomes a series of intentional steps forward. The circumstances might be the same, but the energy is completely different. Fear will keep you up at night, running through problems you can't solve in your head. Faith will tuck you in at night with the peace of knowing those problems are in the hands of someone who can solve them better than you. So every time you face a choice, big or small, pause and ask yourself, am I making this move because I'm afraid or because I believe? If the answer is fear, it's time to shift your perspective. Replace, what if it fails, with, what if it works? Replace, I can't, with, I will try. Replace, I'm not ready, with, I'm willing. Because the truth is, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's deciding that fear doesn't get the final say. And when you keep making that decision, faith over fear, every single time, something amazing happens. Your confidence grows. Your peace deepens. Your life expands beyond the small box fear kept you in. You stop being a prisoner of the what if and start becoming a builder of the what will be. That's when you realize faith didn't just protect you from danger. It opened the door to the very best parts of life. Trust is like a bridge. You don't build a bridge in one day, and once it's built, you don't just neglect it and expect it to stay strong. It's made of repeated actions, steady choices, and the proof that you mean what you say over time. That's why consistency is the currency of trust. It's not the big dramatic gestures that keep trust alive. It's the daily, quiet faithfulness that says, you can count on me every time. You can't expect someone to protect you fiercely if they're not sure where you stand from day to day. One moment you're all in, the next you're doubting, pulling away, or acting like you can handle life without their covering. That's like showing up for work randomly and expecting to keep the job. Reliability is what tells your protector, this one is worth my shield. If your loyalty is constant, your protection will be constant. The problem is, a lot of people treat trust like a mood. If they feel good about life that day, they trust. If something goes wrong, they doubt. If they get the answer they wanted, they believe. If they don't, they start questioning everything. But trust that changes with the weather isn't trust at all. It's convenience. Real trust stays the same whether the day is sunny or stormy, whether the path feels smooth or rocky. When you show up with consistency, you're saying, I'm here for the long haul. And that's what makes protection sustainable. Think about a guard standing at your door. If you're inside one day, gone the next, hiding in the basement the next, and then trying to give orders from the roof the next, the guard can't do his job well. But if you stay in the place where you belong, consistently letting him handle the threats, he knows exactly how to cover you. That steadiness makes the whole system work. Consistency is also proof of loyalty. Loyalty isn't proven when everything is going your way. It's proven when things are falling apart and you still choose to stay. That's when it becomes valuable. When you keep showing up in faith, even when it doesn't make sense, you're essentially paying into the account of trust. And the interest on that account is protection, blessing, and favor that you couldn't earn any other way. Here's a short example to make this clear. Imagine a young man named Daniel who worked on a farm owned by an older gentleman, Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris was known for rewarding people who worked hard and could be trusted, but Daniel had a habit of disappearing whenever he got frustrated. He'd show up for 3 weeks in a row, be the most reliable worker in the field, and then miss several days without telling anyone. Every time he came back, Mr. Harris would welcome him but wouldn't give him any extra responsibilities. One day Daniel complained, "Why don't you ever let me handle the bigger jobs or manage the other workers?" Mr. Harris looked at him and said, "Son, I can't put you in charge if I can't count on you to be here every day. Protection, responsibility, and trust all go to the ones who are consistent, not just the ones who are talented." Daniel finally understood his inconsistency was costing him opportunities. So he made a decision to show up every single day, rain or shine, without disappearing. Months later, not only did Mr. Harris put him in charge of managing part of the farm, He also stepped in to help Daniel buy his own plot of land when the time came. That protection and support came because Daniel proved he could be counted on. His consistency earned him trust, and that trust unlocked blessings and safety he couldn't have imagined when he was unreliable. That's how it works in life. You can't say you trust someone with your safety one day and then second, guess them the next and expect their protection to be unshakable. You can't keep switching sides between faith and doubt and expect stability. The shield works best for those who stand in place under it. Day after day, decision after decision. No matter how tempting it is to wander, consistency doesn't just make trust possible, it makes it grow. Every time you choose to be faithful, every time you keep showing up when it would have been easier to bail, you add another brick to the foundation of trust. Over time, that foundation becomes so strong that storms can't knock it down. And the beauty of that is, once the protector sees your loyalty, they'll guard you with even more intensity because they know their investment in you isn't wasted. So the truth is simple, but demanding trust isn't built on words, it's built on patterns. And patterns take time. If you want fierce protection, show fierce loyalty. If you want unshakable covering, bring unshakable consistency. Because in the end, that steady, unwavering faithfulness is the currency that buys you the kind of trust that nothing and no one can break. Obedience is one of those words. It doesn't sound exciting at first. It sounds strict, maybe even limiting, like you're giving up your freedom or letting someone else make all your decisions. But in reality, obedience is one of the most powerful, liberating choices you can make, especially when it's obedience to the right voice, the right guidance, the right authority. When you follow the instructions given to you, even if they don't make total sense in the moment, you set things in motion that you can't see yet. It's like pressing a hidden button that unlocks a whole system of protection and preparation working behind the scenes on your behalf. That's why obedience activates the backup plan you never even knew was there. The truth is, most of us only plan for what we can see. We prepare for the obvious challenges, the ones right in front of us. But life has a way of throwing the unseen at you. Situations you couldn't predict, threats you didn't know existed, detours you never saw coming. That's where obedience comes in. You might think you're just following a simple instruction, but what you're actually doing is stepping into alignment with something bigger, something that already knows the full picture and has set up safety nets you don't know about yet. The challenge for most people is that obedience often requires trust before understanding. You don't always get the why in advance. You might be told to take a route you've never taken, to delay a move you were eager to make, to speak to someone you wouldn't normally approach, or to avoid something that looks harmless. In the moment, it might feel inconvenient or even unnecessary, but later, sometimes much later, you discover that the obedience you gave wasn't just about that moment. It was the trigger for protection from something that would have blindsided you otherwise. Think about a soldier on the battlefield. They don't have the same vantage point as the commander watching from a higher ground or a control room. The soldier sees what's right in front of them. The commander sees the bigger map, the enemy's movements, and the traps ahead. When the commander says, "Hold your position," or "Move now," the soldier might not know why in that second, but obedience to that command could mean the difference between safety and disaster. Here's a short example that brings this to life. A young woman named Lee had just been offered her dream job in a different city. Everything in her said, yes. The salary was great, the location was perfect, and she had already started looking at apartments. But she had a strong inner sense telling her to wait just 3 more months before making the move. She couldn't explain it. It didn't make sense. The company wanted her immediately, and delaying meant she might lose the opportunity. Still, she decided to obey that nudge to wait. 2 months later, the city she was planning to move to was hit with severe flooding that shut down large parts of its business district, including the building where her new company's office was located. Many employees lost their jobs in the restructuring that followed. The position she would have moved for was eliminated. Because she waited, she kept her current job, avoided the financial and emotional mess of relocating during a disaster, and was later offered an even better role by the same company once they recovered. At the time she decided to delay, Leah didn't know there was a flood coming. She didn't know her dream job would vanish. But her obedience to that quiet instruction activated a backup plan that kept her safe and positioned her for something better. That's the way this principle works. You might think you're making a small, even inconvenient choice, but obedience connects you to outcomes you could never have engineered on your own. It protects you from hidden dangers and prepares blessings for you that would have otherwise been out of reach. The hard part is that obedience often asks for humility. It means admitting that you don't see everything, that someone else might know more than you about what's coming next. It requires you to lay down pride and impatience, and those aren't easy things to give up. But the reward is that you get to live under a level of covering that keeps you ahead of trouble, instead of always reacting to it. When you start to live this way, you begin to see patterns. You notice that every time you've been obedient to the right guidance, even when it didn't make sense, something worked out in your favor later. You start to trust the process more, even when it's uncomfortable. And eventually, obedience stops feeling like restriction. It starts feeling like a secret advantage, because that's what it is. The advantage of having protection already in place for things you can't even name yet. So when the moment comes where you feel prompted to take a step, change direction, or hold your position, don't let your need for an explanation keep you from moving. The backup plan is already written. The protection is already arranged. All it needs is your obedience to activate it. And when it clicks into place, you'll look back and realize it was never about losing freedom. It was about gaining safety, opportunity, and peace you couldn't have got any other way. Gratitude is more than just good manners. It's more than saying, "Thank you," because you were taught it's polite. True gratitude is a posture of the heart, a way of recognizing that you are not walking through life alone and that the help, protection, and blessings you receive are worth acknowledging, not just in the big moments, but in the small, ordinary ones too. Gratitude has a way of deepening any relationship because it tells the other person, "I see what you're doing for me, I value it, and I don't take it for granted." When you consistently express gratitude for the small rescues, you strengthen a bond that makes the big rescues even more certain, more intentional, and often more abundant. The truth is, everyone notices whether you appreciate them or not. Protection, especially, isn't something you should treat as a given. If someone steps in to shield you from harm, whether that harm is physical, emotional, financial, or even just the weight of a bad day, acknowledging it reinforces the relationship. It fuels the desire to keep protecting, because everyone, even the strongest protector, responds to appreciation. When you show gratitude, you're not just being nice, you're building trust, loyalty, and mutual respect. The opposite is also true. When someone is always working in your favor, but never hears a word of thanks, it can weaken the connection. Protection starts to feel like an obligation rather than an honor. And while a true protector may still do their job out of principle, the energy behind it isn't the same. Gratitude doesn't just say, "Thanks." It says, "What you did mattered to me, and I remember it." That memory strengthens the bond in ways that can't be measured in words alone. Gratitude is also about perspective. People tend to notice and celebrate the big rescues. The job that came through at the last moment, the illness healed, the major crisis averted. But the big rescues are rare compared to the small, everyday ones, the safe arrival home in bad weather, the unexpected encouragement on a hard day, the financial help that came right before a bill was due, the moment you avoided making a mistake because of a sudden change in plans. The more you start thanking someone for these smaller rescues, the more you realize how many times you've been shielded without even knowing you needed it. That awareness transforms your relationship because you no longer see protection as occasional luck. You see it as constant care. Gratitude also draws you closer to the heart of the protector. You become more aware of their intentions, their effort, and their commitment to you. And when that connection deepens, something shifts. The protector becomes even more invested in your well-being. They go further, work harder, and prepare more for you because they know you value what they do. In many ways, gratitude is like watering a plant. The more you pour into it, the stronger and healthier it grows, producing more than it would have if you had neglected it. Here's a short example to bring this to life. There was a man named Thomas who owned a small construction company. One of his workers, Javier, was known for his reliability and hard work. But what stood out most about Javier wasn't just his skill. It was how he thanked Thomas every time he got his paycheck. It wasn't a quick, offhand thanks either. He would look Thomas in the eye and say, "Thank you for trusting me with this work. Thank you for providing for my family through this job." He even thanked Thomas for little things, like buying coffee for the crew or adjusting the schedule so Javier could attend his son's school event. Over time, Thomas noticed that he went out of his way to look out for Javier, giving him the best assignments, protecting him from layoffs during slow seasons, and even helping him buy a truck when his old one broke down. Why? Because Javier's gratitude made Thomas want to protect and bless him even more. The bond they built through those consistent expressions of thanks was so strong that years later, when Thomas retired, he handed the business over to Javier without hesitation. That's the kind of power gratitude holds. It doesn't just say, "I appreciate what you did." It plants seeds that grow into bigger opportunities, stronger protection, and deeper trust. It turns what could be a distant, functional relationship into something personal, invested, and lasting. And while the story here is about two people, the principle applies in every area of life when you thank the one who protects you. For the little rescues, not just the dramatic ones, you're telling them that their effort matters, and that strengthens the bond in ways nothing else can. So make gratitude a habit, not just a reaction. Don't wait for the big rescue to pour out your thanks. Notice the everyday shields that are quietly in place around you, and speak your appreciation often. Gratitude turns protection from a duty into a delight, and when protecting you becomes a delight, you can be sure the rescues will only get bigger, stronger, and more miraculous over time. Listen to me. The protection you're looking for isn't found in a bigger bank account, a stronger fence, or a tougher squad of friends. It's found in surrendering that need to control and trusting the one who has been in the business of protecting since before you even knew what danger was. When you trust him, really trust him, you don't walk around scared, you walk around confident. You don't live in panic, you live in peace, because you know you're covered. And let me tell you, when he's got you covered, no storm, no enemy, no darkness can touch you.